Okay, so I'm about to do a part 2. I've been wanting to make this for a while because this also goes into like how I guess like certain situations, and especially when it comes to homelessness, although I really hate the term homeless, but how that eats away at your mind and stuff. But I know that like there's also the opposite side, which is for people who even are like able to get a place, there's also the issues of them like feeling lonely, and rather like even if they wait a minute. I've heard stories of like people get in places but they just can't handle like being inside of the house by themselves, so they have to like go back out and talk to people who will like drag them back down. And I'm not saying like that everybody's like doing stuff that'll drag somebody down, but like the demographic that first comes to mind is like for example, when I was in Cali, and especially this one documentary that I was watching, and there was this dude from Arizona, or in Arizona, and he had got a place, but I don't think he lost it. I can't really remember. Maybe he did, but either way, he just had to like go and start talking to old people again because, of course, he had no one else to talk to. In fact, when I was in Oregon, I had met this lady when I got there, and whatever she was saying her son had, she definitely has it too. But she claims he was like schizo and some other stuff. And anywho, she said that he didn't use any substances or anything, but he didn't have any friends because he had a disability, and so he got bullied. And so he started hanging out with some people, and they ended up SHOTing him. And it's interesting. They do claim that like the homeless people in Portland have like weapons and stuff. Okay, actually that's not what happened. I didn't even mean to say that. He got SHOT not by the people he was hanging out with, but somebody was like just SHOTing in general, and he ended up getting hit. That's what happened. And so she would always go on these rants about how much she hated homeless people and the homeless drug addicts because of what happened to her son. And she was one of those let me help you lunatic type people. Not as bad as most, but she was always talking about how there was help and he was about to get help, quote unquote, to get housing for his disability, which just raised so many questions. And it's like, people talk about this quote unquote help, but where was the help? But it's just so interesting, especially because of like how a lot of West Coasters, maybe more so in Cali, feel about weapons. So that's kind of interesting because they hate GUN so much. But what was I gonna say with that? Oh yeah, but it even makes me think about like kids that aren't homeless, but like they go and they hang out at around homeless shelters. I've witnessed that a couple times with two white boys that come to mind. One situation is kind of recent, then the other one was kind of different, because the one back in Cali, I mean, he got kicked out pretty often, so like of course he's gonna end up like hanging out in the environment because he has to go to like this one resource center for food. But I know I mentioned him before. He was 14. In the more recent situation, the boy was 17. But either way, it makes me think about that. But the first one really did have issues with being around people his age. The other one, he's in school and stuff, so it's kind of whatever. Although the first one really didn't have much of a choice. But I think that can even go back to how like people who don't fit in are like bound to end up in and around certain situations and stuck in certain cycles, if that even came out right. Like, since I'm chronically online, I even remember well over a year ago, I seen this comment where somebody was like, people who don't fit into society are bound to end up in positions like this. And it was a comment under a video about homelessness, and then of course some person came and started talking about, well, it's their fault that they use substances or something like that. And it's like the Caucasian addict projection has really screwed people's heads up. Everything doesn't have something to do with meth and heroin. I don't know when these people are gonna get that. That everything in life isn't about some drug or meth or something. Like, life just happens. And at the end of the day, as I always say, even though the Caucasian community's drug issues have been made the face of homelessness, starting especially out of Cali, which is so interesting because, like, you see the trailer parks in, like, West Virginia and the South and stuff, where they use all those substances and stuff, but they're not homeless. But anywho, still one of the things that I mentioned with that is that it's not even that you, like, become homeless because you use. You start using because you're homeless. And also because America, they force people on drugs in infancy. Like, and that's kind of talked about in many videos because it started off of, like, me talking about the human cash cow systems and the cash for kids system. But there's this one video where I think I have screenshots of, like, this video where, like, there was a lot of Russian bots talking about how America forces these people on substances and how there's just so many people that have been betrayed out on the streets that could easily be turned against America to work for Russia. There was bot comments like that. And then my videos about Paris and stuff, I mentioned how people are talking about they believe that the reason why the youth these days are quote-unquote conservative, people are saying that the youth are more conservative and that teen pregnancy is dropping, and a lot of youth are identifying as asexual, and people are saying that, like, part of that is because of the fact that so many people are forced on psychotropics, neurotoxin psychotropics, starting in infancy, that they have PTSD and the other brain damage symptoms that screw up your libido and make you unable to climax and all types of stuff. And that definitely is a part of it. Crap, I even met some girl recently who was talking about that, so yeah, that's how it goes. And anywho, what was I saying? Oh yeah, but wait a minute. Is this a leaf or is this a bug? Crap. I can't remember if there was anything else I was going to say with that. So, for my first bullet point, I put roam time. This keeps you on loops with insanity. I first heard this term when I was in Oregon because there's, like, a youth program where you can, like, make movies, or you make a movie, you do, like, a 3-week intensive or something like that. Can't really remember. And this one girl was, she wanted to make a documentary, and in the documentary, she said she was going to mention what they call roam time. I don't think she's homeless anymore, which this was the one good thing I noticed when I was in Oregon, is that, like, in Cali, everybody at the Youth Resource Center was homeless, but in Oregon, a lot of the people no longer were homeless anymore, which was a good thing, because it's like, you're used to, like, there being all these programs around that claim that they're doing something, but nobody's situation's gotten any better. And so, anywho, that was a good thing. But she was homeless at one point since 16 or younger. I think also due to, like, just family stuff and expenses. And so, and then of course a lot of other people were foster kids. She was talking about how she wanted to interview people and get them to talk about how you just have to, like, walk around and find things to do until the resource center opens. And yeah, that's pretty much what roam time means. The time where you just walk around, find things to do, go to the park, go to the library, wherever, until whatever resource center you go to opens, and you can go there to eat, shower, and whatever else. Although I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember there being, maybe I never, like, went to enough of the youth resource centers. Some of their, like, timing was pretty tricky, and due to, like, the brain damage and stuff I have, I get lost really, really easily, and I can't remember. It's funny, the things that I can't remember versus the things that I can't remember. So, like, I can't tell, like, I could go somewhere one day and then not remember where it was at the next day and be like, okay, how did I get here again? And that's why, like, LOL, I know it sounds like I need to be in, like, a nursing home or something, but I can't live in, like, a place where that's set up like a city, like a downtown metro area. I get lost too easily in places like that, and I just can't do that. So I may have never went to one of the resource centers that did have a shower, but I don't remember any place having a shower but the youth shelter, which that could be its own separate video. And I might have talked about that place before. If you leave 1 minute late in the morning, or you wake up 1 minute late, you're banned for 1 day. The whole quote-unquote, I reported my coworker because we can't have our tits out around kids situation. And the dude was trans, and he had on like the see-through shirt and no bra. And yeah, that was it. But Rome time. And it makes me think about when I was in North Carolina. Back in that whole shebang where it's 15 degrees and snowing. So, I mentioned this a lot in my playlist titled Funny Things That Have Happened Since Being Homeless / Running Away, because a lot of funny things have and do happen, and I still need to make like some more videos about some of the funny things. But when I was there, now I'm having flashbacks. Like, people, it was just really cold outside to get to the point. And, like, there was really nothing to do. There weren't a lot of resource centers at all in general. In fact, the place that we were going to was just a storm shelter at a Catholic church. It wasn't even, like, a resource center. So, of course, like, once the storm is over, there's nowhere to go all over again. And they didn't have a shower there, of course. So that was a side thing. Hold up, my throat is really dry for some reason. But, like, we would just have to go to the library. And I remember the cop was talking about, the Abbott Allied security dude, he was talking about how people were just, like, loitering at the library and just standing around. And he was tired of it. He started talking more junk about that because the police had dropped off some lady to stand in the library too. I don't know what happened with that situation. Like, obviously I don't know what happened, but they were just dropping her off, and I guess she was coming to like stand in the library too. Like, I don't know, maybe like she was looking for a warm place to go and they just brought her there. Which, if that was the case, which I doubt it, I mean, something happened, but it was nice of them, because every time I've asked the police for a ride throughout the years, they always tell me they wouldn't give me a ride anywhere unless it's to jail. So yeah, they won't give rides or directions typically. And I remember there was this one lady, and just a lot of people really, they just like stare off into space the whole time. And you know what, when I was in Cali, people would always try to make that about drugs, because of course they have so much drug issues. They feel like everything is about drugs. I remember this one time I missed the last bus when I was vending with this lady for Halloween. She was doing face painting, like clown makeup and stuff, and I was selling art, and I missed the last bus doing that. And then I was like sitting somewhere near the bus stop, but on the other side of the street, and he came up out of nowhere because he had been at the bar. He was extremely drunk. He was peeing in the parking lot. And I didn't know till recently that people, like, assume that having to pee a lot means you're drunk. And it's like, well, crap, people would definitely accuse me of being drunk then. That's another story. I put that video in the description. From the situation with this lawyer, people were saying she needed to go to jail because she had to pee somewhere in public, and she said it was because of a medical condition. And people were saying, no, she was drunk. And I was just thinking, why would they assume that she was drunk, but then I remembered this situation. But anywho, I was sitting in this parking lot, and then this guy came up, and his speech was really slurred, and he was like, I know how it feels to be looking for your next fix, and I used to be an addict, and I couldn't even work, and I'm trying to be nice to you, but really my mom owns this property, and I was gonna tell you to leave, and he was like, you're gonna have to go to rehab, and that stuff is just really annoying, and very obviously you're still an addict. And there was that. It makes me think about that as well. But but I was gonna say, like, when people, especially when I was in Cali, would see like homeless people laughing or just staring off into space, they always like make it about drugs, but like, it's something that you're really always going to have is like a trauma symptom that you have even before you end up out here. The whole dissociating and maladaptive daydreaming, humor as the coping mechanism. In fact, I remember this was like during my mid days, I don't know, when I was in Cali, and one of the tropical storms came through and everybody's tents got flooded, and we were all like sleeping on the porch of the shelter, and luckily they were nice enough to even let people do that. They agreed to let us stay out there until the rain stopped, then max till 2 or 3 a.m. and they even turned on like these porch heater things that they had that like it's like a metal pole with fire on like the inside. You have to like turn it up or something. It's hard to really explain. And it was really, really cold. And I remember like at first they said that we couldn't go to sleep out there, but then they were like, okay, fine, you can, because the staff kind of felt bad, and we were just like out there making jokes the whole time. It makes me think about that, because like you gotta like have humor to cope. But anywho, it's no different from like how I've always thought about this, and I said before, if you don't talk to yourself before you become homeless, you're definitely going to start once you become homeless. And I was watching this video of this one dude. I wish I could find the video. I put it in the description. He was talking about he became homeless and how like he burst out laughing once, and his friend asked him what was funny. He told him what he was thinking about, and he said if like a stripper name was like poo poo caca something, and then the other dude was like, you shouldn't tell anybody that, and he was like, well, I mean, you asked, or something like that. But he also talked about how like if you don't already talk to yourself, you're gonna start. All that stuff is just like coping mechanisms and trauma symptoms, and I've always thought out loud for most of my life anyways. I try not to though. So, but yes, like when you're in these like places where all people think about is substance use, everything is about substance use to them. In fact, I know one lady that I've been pretty worried about that's always doing the usual staring stuff, but I mean, I get why. Like, I really think that, I don't know, I think that like people start to realize more and more that they're probably not going to get out this situation. And it just really gets to them more and more. And I definitely do worry about a lot of people. But anyhow, the point is that, like, pretty much Rome time keeps you in this loop of, like, waiting for things. It's like, people, they stand in the bus station until they're told to leave or whatever. And they stand in the library and try to sneak and take naps. There's this one elderly lady. She would wear shades and have a book in her hand to like pretend that she was reading the book and pretend that she wasn't asleep. It's not funny, but like it's definitely a good idea, but I feel like it can only work for so long, because like if you eventually like slump over, then you're kicked out and you're banned. But you can't even focus on doing the things that you really need to do because you're stuck in this loop of waiting to get basic needs met. Like I mentioned before with this Catholic Church storm shelter thing, it's already 15 degrees and snowing. You're woken up at 4 a.m. to leave, to be dropped off on the side of the road. Like when I didn't know what was even going on when we were being dropped off. I thought that they were like taking us somewhere else, but no, we were being dropped off on the side of the road. And I remember there was this one lady on her first day after we got back later that day. She was like, so where did all of y'all go? Because when they dropped us off on the side of the road, I didn't know where to go, and I just got lost, and I thought that we were going somewhere else. And I was like, yeah, that's the same thing I thought at first, but everybody pretty much just goes to the library or the bus station and waits. And me and some other people told her we could show her next time where you walk to. But it's like, you can't even really have like a job in this type of situation because, I mean, for one, you have no real transportation. It's just way too cold. You couldn't really go to school either because it's like you're so focused on waiting to get somewhere warm, to get something to eat, to be able to go to sleep, possibly. Which I think I talk about that whole situation in the playlist I mentioned about the funny stuff. Somebody would get sent to jail every single night, mostly for dumb stuff. But anywho, yeah, I don't even know how else to describe it. Like, I was thinking earlier about how, like, living in a shopping center parking lot, I would never do this or advise this. I know when I was 16, it wasn't really an option because of, like, the state that I was in, and also, like, I guess I could say the area that I was in, the lack of transportation. I didn't have a tent. I didn't have a good sleeping bag. In fact, at first I didn't have a sleeping bag or anything at all because I wasn't able to get one, and I didn't even manage to get a good sleeping bag till some months into being in Cali because they cost $100+. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, my first one, someone else got it for me, luckily. But anywho, like, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but it's like, I don't know, it's just so awkward. Like, I was kind of trying to describe in my part 1, like the embarrassing side and just feeling like, well, not even feeling like you're being watched. It's kind of like, one, you can't go to sleep when you want to when you're in a situation like this, or if you're in a situation, I'm in a place where, there's like a lot of homeless hate and random people and law enforcement constantly like running around looking for homeless people. Like, for example, people call the police on you because they're quote unquote worried, and so now the police know where you're at, and so whenever it starts raining or a storm or a hurricane comes, like the police will specifically go looking for you in the roof spot that they know that you hang out at to kick you out into the rain. I've had stuff like that happen before. Also behind the whole Shane situation, but this was a very common thing when I was on the West Coast. Like, they would literally go look for you whenever it starts raining, wherever they think you're at, to threaten you and tell you to go stand in the rain, in the cold, at 3 a.m. and stuff like that. And it's so funny because the people that call the police, mostly due to homeless hate, but some of them will have the excuse that they're quote unquote worried. Like, they'll do everything but actually help you. But anywho, so yeah, stuff like that. What was I getting at? I think I was getting somewhere, don't really remember, but I do know I was gonna say it's also kind of embarrassing. No, I was gonna say that, like, when you're in these places with like this high security, like, it can be hard to even really like sleep outside of places, which can be really sucky. That's why I'm glad that I'm not in a place like that anymore. But one other thing is that, like, when you're sitting somewhere like where a lot of people go, like a shopping center, it's just so embarrassing because it's kind of like people are just watching you like fade away and like be uncared for, and it's all just so awkward. And then it's like you kind of like just looking at the buildings, watching other people go into places. I know that like how things appear on the outside isn't like reality, and like, I mean, family systems are pretty dysfunctional. Most people didn't even want their kids. Most people raise themselves. I know all of that stuff, even though a lot of people have cognitive dissonance and will say otherwise. But it still is kind of embarrassing when you're just like watching people go out to family dinners and go like to the store and stuff, and you're just like waiting for the place to close so you can go to sleep. And that's just like the bare minimum example of why I would never even recommend hanging around shopping centers or sleeping near them typically. Like, it can depend, but in general, I wouldn't hang out in any public place anyways. Not like, I don't know, sitting outside a Dollar Tree all day. I wouldn't even do something like that. And then for one, I mean, if you're doing that, people are going to feel like you're trying to beg them for something, and then you're going to have people talking junk to you or just like trying really hard to avoid eye contact. And it's interesting because I already felt like I kind of looked at the ground enough, but definitely with all the trauma stuff I went through in Cali because of being a quote-unquote bum, I definitely have fallen into more of a subhuman mind frame, I guess I could say, as I kind of mentioned a little bit in some other video, where like whenever I go in places, even though I know that like around here, like a lot of people, they're not even gonna assume that I'm quote-unquote homeless anyways, but when I go in places, I'm so used to how I was treated, especially in Cali. I feel like I need to hurry up and leave, or I feel like, do I even belong in here? Do I even like belong in the grocery store buying some chips? Like, or I need to hurry up and just go in here and buy whatever I'm gonna buy and use the bathroom and get out before I go to jail for no reason. Or should I even, like, if I'm, I don't know, on the phone with somebody and I'm just like sitting at the park or whatever, like I need to hurry up and get out of this park because I don't belong here and I'm gonna go to jail. Like, the more I really think about it, since so far I'm in a place where that stuff doesn't happen and I'm not constantly dealing with that in the police and stuff like I was in Cali, the more I realize how like all the, really a lot of, most of it was racial. It was really a lot of racial stuff, but they can cover it up as homeless hate. And then of course still the actual homeless hate side, that stuff really did like traumatize me and screw my head up. And I've gained even more trauma revolving around law enforcement and medical professionals, but that's a side thing, I guess. And that honestly really goes into this video anyways, because that's another way that like being homeless can screw your head up. And it's really unfortunate because, like I talk about all the time, the people who end up out here are people who have already had a lot of bullcrap happen. In fact, this one girl who escaped her situation, she even once said that people end up out here after surviving a lot of screwed up or effed up shit, quote unquote. And yeah, that's literally how it goes. Like, you're out here because of some traumatic situation that you got kicked out of, had to escape or got dumped out of, and then you go through more trauma from being treated like crap and being constantly reminded that you're subhuman because now you're quote unquote broke. And it's like, well shoot, I was broke before, so I don't know what in the world. I guess you just can't be visibly broke, or you can't be broke, but you can only be a little bit, I don't know. But it's so weird to me though, because like I've always said, I don't even really necessarily get the whole mindset. Not that I feel like older people should be treated worse, but I don't even really get the mindset of like bashing somebody for being quote unquote homeless that most likely wouldn't even be able to get a home anyways. I never really did get that, but it's always going to be really, really bad to do to people. But anywho, what else could I say with that? So I'm gonna go to the next bullet point. Being cold all night. or being cold in general, even being too hot. And if you have health issues, this can cause even more issues. When I talk about some of the things that happened when I was like in really cold weather in my mitochondrial dysfunction playlist, but overall, I'm more so going to talk about things that I've noticed with other people. This is why I make sure, like whenever I'm able to always get like a new sleeping bag if needed, and I try to always have my sleeping bag and mat. Like, if I didn't learn anything else at 16, it's that if you don't have anything else, you need a 0-degree sleeping bag, which is $100+, and you need a mat. The mat has nothing to do with, like, keeping you off the hard ground. In fact, being on a hard, flat surface is actually good for you. But the mat is actually about R value, and it's supposed to keep you from losing your body heat to the ground. Like, I remember when I was 16 and, like, have to just sleep outside on, like, the concrete during the day when it was hot because it's just warmer. And then the concrete gets heated up by the sun. If you're in, like, a position where, like, the sun is really hitting the concrete, you can also get burnt like that. But if you do it the right way, it's actually, like, a really good thing to do. But you don't want to be the person that has to walk around all night in circles talking to yourself and whatever else to not get cold. And just being cold in general, it can make you lose your mind quicker and split into schizo, because like sitting outside all night or even during the day, like just shivering and like watching people just like either try to avoid eye contact with you or like look at you and then like just gives you weird looks and whatever the different weird stuff that people would do, that's just gonna like tear you apart and you're gonna lose your mind. Pretty much nothing tells you that you don't matter more than like just sitting outside freezing to death in a place where it's 15 degrees and snowing or whatever cold temperature, and maybe even hot. But like I said, I still feel like it's just like a worse mental thing when it's too cold. But either way, you could pass away from both of them, and they're both like really bad. And this is even coming from somebody that's used to like not having AC and stuff. I still feel like there were definitely points in time where being outside in the cold was worse, but I feel like in a lot of ways I was used to like bad weather environments, I guess. You really don't want to be, if you can avoid it, you don't want to be like the cold person. And that's also why I tell people, when you're packing your bag, you don't want to like, you're not going to be able to carry a lot of stuff. You don't want to have anything that's valuable unless like maybe you can sell it. But for a pawn shop, you are going to need to like, if you're under 18, you're going to have to find somebody trustworthy enough to at least split the money with you and not take all of it if you do want to pawn something. But other than that, you really just want a sleeping bag, a mat, one pair of clothes for when it's hot, one for when it's cold, and I guess whatever like hygiene stuff, and then that's pretty much it. Like, you really don't want anything else. I'm not even gonna lie. You don't want to get crazy, but like being able to like not be too cold or too hot, which you really can't even control being too hot, but you really want to not be too cold if you can avoid that. Like a lot of people, they get dragged into like these bad Marine Kingdom setup sexual exploitation situations behind trying to escape the cold, and maybe even the heat, but especially the cold. Like, let's say, I don't know, you're like 14 or any age really, and like you're just sitting outside a building at 3 a.m. shivering or something, and somebody that's predatory sees that, predatory in a sexual way or even some other way, that can go really left really quick, because you're going to be really desperate most likely because you're really cold. And overall, it just really gets you in the mind frame and really helps you understand that nobody gives a crap about you, and you don't want that. Oh, maybe you don't. I mean, shoot. But yeah, if you can avoid that somehow, some way, without having to like do anything mind and soul shattering, then you're gonna want to. So then the next bullet point, as hated as she is, the only person I've ever actually seen talk about the mental and spiritual warfare that people go through while quote unquote homeless is the TMV Celestial Lady, which TMV stands for the Master's Voice. And I think I actually have like a a compilation clip I made of her talking about this in one of the many videos where she mentioned this. While most of Christendom openly hates and pushes away the quote-unquote poor and talks junk about them. And I've mentioned the junk talk in the many videos where I've talked about how I've recently realized that a lot of the videos that I've been watching the past years about like self-help type stuff and different things like that were actually really blamey, didn't apply to me, and weren't helpful, and did nothing but set these like false and fake expectations that made me blame myself more for things that I had no control over anyways. So, and one of the videos where I really talk about that is unlisted, but overall, like, I think like maybe a moral of that is don't look up to the wrong people because they're super spiritual, if anything. Maybe that should have been the title of my videos where I talk about that. But it's like, the more I really start to like I know, like, okay, hold up, this is gonna be kind of irrelevant, but like, they'll call it like the spirit of offense, quote unquote, or being, what's the word that they use? Not triggered, but like, cut with the word, quote unquote. But it's like, the more I really thought about it, and I was like, you know, like, there definitely is a true side to it. They're like, people who aren't willing to do something different and outside the box and take a risk will never have anything and will never be rich or whatever. But it's like, the more I really thought about what these people that I was watching were saying, and it's like, this is really like not okay, problematic, junk talky stuff about like people choosing to be poor. Like, I even remember, this was even somewhat recent, of like one of these types of people saying that like most homeless people have somewhere to go but they won't because of pride. And she was talking about how like she had made this live stream or video of a camera from her some shop that she has, like her something to do with some business she has, and she saw like what looked like a lady and her son walking around trying to break in, and she posted it talking about it to expose him. And then she said she deleted it because people were pretty much, she felt like people were coming for her and were calling her out because they were saying they looked like homeless people looking for somewhere warm to go. And she was like, well, at the end of the day, like, people have misplaced sympathy or something like that, and I can't let my safety be at risk because what if they did break in and then I went to my shop the next morning or something like that and they were in there. And it's like, I mean, some people do try to get into places that they feel like are going to be warm, but I know when I think about myself personally, like, I have like slept on the porches of places. I mostly try to do that with like churches, but I've never been the one for trying to get inside of anywhere for obvious reasons. I wouldn't want to do that, but I feel like, I mean, one of the things about it though is that the people that are framed as the dangerous people are actually the most vulnerable and at-risk people. Like, nothing is more dangerous than the person that claims that they're scared of somebody else for things that the other people or the person or whatever can't control. Yeah, and that's just one example. In fact, I haven't even talked about this in a while, but I wanted to throw this in. I'm somebody that is max 5'0", unfortunately doesn't even weigh 100 pounds, and if I remember that in a picture right here, I don't think I look that threatening, but when I was in Cali, like, in Oregon, I think, I just had to deal with a lot of situations of people claiming to be scared of me and running from me and stuff, but those are definitely racial situations. But of course, people can just blame it on being scared of the homeless person, and that can be their excuse to constantly call the cops on me. And like, a lot of people well, I don't want to say a lot of people, some people actually won't even believe there's actually people that call themselves being quote-unquote scared of me and running from me. But it's actually not a new thing, because I was always known as like the weird person. But the thing is, when you're the weird kid and you like live with your relatives and you're like at school or something, or you're like just out in the world and known as like the weird person, that's different. But when you're the weird homeless person, then like you're considered dangerous, and so it can just be a totally different thing. But people running from me because like I'm the weird person is definitely gonna be different from people running from me and claiming to be scared of me for some reason when I'm homeless. And the more I really listen to like a lot of these people, it's like, even though they said a lot of things that were true and helpful, it just made me not be able to listen to any of their videos or anything that they had to say anymore, because just so much messy stuff. And people can say what they want, but I've noticed that everybody that's talked about celestial, or well, not everybody, but a lot of people that have, are like falling away and being exposed and stuff for different things. So that's also interesting. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't really watch any of that stuff anymore. Not too much. I don't really watch a lot of stuff anymore. I mostly just like make my own videos, cause I got fed up with a lot of stuff. Like, I just got tired of a lot of different things and a lot of mess that people had to say. And I think it even goes back to how I started to realize a couple years ago that I really don't even like most people I meet. And most of these people that I call myself looking up to, as I mentioned well over a year ago, would just see me as the bad kid who's a runaway and whatever else. And that also made me think more about it. As per usual, I forgot this one thing. So I was in this group. This one lady in the group, because we were all talking about like how we feel about ourselves and trying to like have better views of ourselves, like positive self-talk pretty much. And she said she felt like she was like just existing, and she felt like she was lame and doesn't have any emotion, quote unquote. That's definitely really relatable, especially because a common insult used against homeless people is that they're like just existing and not doing anything and taking up space, or even the idea that like certain demographics, certain types of people, people in certain situations aren't contributing to society but are just taken away, which can even go into my anthropomorphized video. That's what I'm gonna title it, where I mention how this one part of the Rich Dad Poor Dad audiobook reminded me of a comment that I seen years ago, where somebody was like, people who make $500 an hour have convinced people that make $20 an hour that all their problems are caused by people that make $7 an hour. But anywho, oh yeah, so I was gonna say that like I can definitely say that the past couple months I feel like I've changed for the worst. Not like anything drastic, well, I guess maybe it is, I don't know. Like just spiritually falling apart, it feels, but I feel like it's also probably warfare from getting over like the sexual addiction. Like I just feel like I've fallen apart, and like now even more so, I kind of do have that like just existing feeling. Like at one point the insults like that didn't really mean much to me, but it's like now I think about that more. Not even like worrying about what other people have to say, but I mean it's kind of hard to not do that. Like the bad always outweighs the good, to be honest. But just the fact that like I mean it kind of does feel like that after a while. Like when you're somebody who already never really did fit in anyways, it's just really isolating. Like it's already a known fact that like statistically homeless people always say that they feel like detached from society. Like I even remember I was talking to this boy a couple months ago, and he was telling me about how like he was backpacking down the freeway or something like that when he was like 18 or 19, and he still looked like a quote unquote kid, and he even did the quote unquote thing, and I totally get that. And how somebody called the police, and he asked the police, "Why'd you stop me?" And then he said, "Because people are worried about you." And he was like, "They weren't effing worried about me. If they were worried about me, they would have asked me if I needed something." And I totally get that. And before he even said that part, I was thinking about saying it, but I didn't, because I didn't really know him like that, and I didn't want to like do that thing that I do where people say, "Oh, that's so Debbie Downery and depressing." But it's really just the reality that nobody gives a crap about anybody. But anyways, he also told me about how one time somebody threw an empty bag of McDonald's at him. But anywho, like, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, but he was saying that he's detached from this world. And it's so interesting because like many of us that end up out here, even people that like are similar with the anointed prophetic, gifted, or now called neurodivergent or empath, different terms like that, quote unquote chosen ones. Or now people are saying the remnant, which I feel like that can depend. But anywho, people like that, even ones who like are in decent enough situations to where like they may still live with relatives, or maybe they have their own place or whatever. They still have they have also always like understood the feeling of like being detached from the world and never fitting in. But I do think that like this can even go into my bad, crazy, slow, and etc. playlist, where like I really put videos in there that are supposed to revolve around those labels, or bad, crazy, slow, poor, third world. Maybe I didn't put the third world part in there, but the different labels that are used against people, this can go into that. And even my anointed prophetic autism, racial autism, BPD, PDs, etc. playlist. But like all this goes hand in hand, and I feel like especially like, for example, when you're homeless and you're like, I don't know, maybe you dress weird, like you're emo or something, or you're just considered weird, or you're told that you act weird, like you're no longer the weird person or the weird kid. Now you're the dangerous, weird, strange, homeless person that needs to be in jail somewhere. Like that can even really change. Because like I feel like there's a situation, I'm not really sure what in the world it was really about, because I've only ever been in this place literally 2 times, maybe 3, and I think maybe this was like the 3rd time. But I got told that I wasn't allowed in the Taco Bell, and that I know I was banned, quote unquote, even though I didn't know that. I'm not even sure why, to be honest, but I feel like it has something to do with like them just feeling like I'm like this weird lady because of like maybe how I have dressed like the past months, or since I've been here anyway, since I've been where I'm at now. Because I even remember like they were like there goes that Mario lady, or here comes that Mario lady, and it's like, well, so yeah, I guess like maybe that's what it's about, but I don't even really know. I know that I really shouldn't even care, but that was like months ago, and I still have like that too, I guess, but ruminating like petty thoughts about that. And it's like, I don't know, it even goes back to what I always say, especially in my Why People Are After You Zombies playlist. At the end of the day, unless you can get above most people, you're probably always going to be in situations where you're like vulnerable, at risk, and being abused and tortured, just like seen as less than. The only way to get around that, it seems, is to get above most people, or go way off the grid somewhere where nobody's at and nobody can do anything to you, but then you're still left to lose your mind by yourself. And it seems like that's always like a risk anyways. Like it seems like you lose your mind on your own, or you lose your mind because of other people. Yeah, like the whole quote-unquote just existing thing can get embarrassing, because it's kind of like people after a while just feel like they're watching you. No, hold up, I'm screwing this all up. You feel like people are just watching you be quote-unquote lazy or whatever, and like maybe people feel like, well, yeah, you should have got to a better position by now, and stuff like that. And like I feel like due to the trauma of like constantly having people and I'm talking about like in the abuse situation with like relatives or the cash for kids system and the human cash cow systems, constantly having people accuse you of stuff that they know that you didn't do, like reactive abuse, manipulation, projecting, and like talk junk about you for your every move. Like there's so many things that I see people do, like just normal things, like wear their hair a certain way, dress a certain way, tie their shoes a certain way, walk a certain way, that me and my siblings would get cursed out for and attacked and stuff, or attacked, or that my dad would like be mad at me for. That's just like normal everyday stuff that people typically don't even notice or think about when people do it. That's the type of stuff that gives people what gets labeled off as anxiety and even OCD. But like, especially if you're already clairvoyant or clairaudient, whatever it's called, like, it makes people's bulk after they say and think about you even worse. And especially once you're out here, and then it's kind of like, it just adds to like the paranoia, because it's like everybody's judging you, because people do judge you and do talk junk about you and do give you like mean looks. Or especially like the white people that make my situation racial, which, as I always say, was so annoying, because like, especially when I was in Cali, the reason that I stuck out as a quote-unquote homeless black kid was because I was the only quote-unquote black person there. And even though there were hundreds of homeless kids and foster kids that were kicked out every other day or were just straight up homeless, like, people of course ignored them because they don't really care, to make jokes about my situation and do the whole, as I quote all the time, the shame on your parents lady, and just even recent situations of like white people just like laughing at me and stuff, which is just really interesting. But stuff like that, it's all just like really embarrassing, and it's like the just existing quote unquote thing really gets you. But it's like, even in my previous situation, I feel like a lot of it was like just existing and just trying to get by and trying to like survive and live till the next day. And a lot of people like are talking about feeling this way these days, and feeling a lot of ways that people consider depressing. And it's really interesting how like so many people feel the same way, but sometimes for different or similar enough reasons. Like the loneliness crisis that people talk about, different things like that.